Hello, everyone. Welcome to Court with Krissy. What the buck? I've got the sentencing and restitution update. And based on what the defendant has to pay for the deer he killed, this could be the last Court with Krissy. My new business venture, bucks, racks, and mounts. I'm going to be bucking rich. I hope you like it. Court with Krissy is now in session.
We will go on the record in the matter 24 CF 110, State of Wisconsin versus Wesley Rayo Wolf. The state appears through Assistant District Attorney Kevin Schmidt in person. We have Mr. Rayo Wolf in person with counsel Albert Moustakis appearing in person as well. We're set today in this matter for the sentencing portion as well as the restitution portion of this case. Before I begin, I want to note, Mr. Moustakis, you did file what?
Close enough.
Moustakis?
Yes.
Well, see, I said Moustakis before, but then Ms. Thompson called you Moustakis. And so then I'm like, maybe I said it wrong. So then I made note to say it the other way. So, okay, Mr. Moustakis. Moustakis. You filed documents, 75 pages this morning. I didn't have time to read it because I work.
I knew you wouldn't have time to read it, but
Okay.
I couldn't get it filed till late yesterday, and I apologize for that because I'm very busy and I really had to review it and see if I thought it would be appropriate to file. I'm just going to summarize some things from it. It's more for informational purposes, and I'll indicate to the court that the court asked us a question at the last hearing, and you held up 2 pages of the diversion agreement. This article, it's an abstract from 2019, so it's fairly relevant and recent, talks about the benefits of diversion programs.
I'm well aware of the benefits of diversion programs.
Well,
I'm a proponent of diversion programs, quite honestly. And
Yeah.
I work with Mr. Schmidt, and once he is the district attorney here, we're going to meet to try and work even more to have diversion programs for Burnett County. So I'm well aware of diversion programs and the benefits.
I don't practice here.
But I did
generally.
not read this article.
It may be something you'd like to read in the future. I'm going to refer to some of the statistics out of it for purposes of that, because at the last hearing, the court made me feel like it didn't value diversion programs.
No,
Okay.
I value diversion programs. I also do understand consequences and accountability and responsibility for conduct and behavior. Even though somebody may be a juvenile or maybe young, there's still consequences for your behavior. And even though we're talking about an animal, we are talking about a livelihood of an individual who does this for a living. And I want to make sure that that is instilled not only in Mr. Rayo Wolf, but in the public as a whole.
Yeah.
So that is where this court is coming from, Mr. Moustakis.
I appreciate that, Judge.
I reviewed the abstract of it. I think it stands for what you and I are taught at a lot of conferences. It basically says first-time offenders, when you do diversion on them, it reduces recidivism, increases their likelihood to be employed in the future.
All right, okay. So before we even begin any further, I want to address restitution. Has that been stipulated to, or?
We stipulate to the document that was provided to me, which indicated a $15,000 restitution figure.
All right, and if I look at that, I see 15,000 even. All right, so we have $15,000 in restitution that for RAL, victim RAL restitution, $15,000, and that's stipulated to Mr. Rayo Wolf.
I'd say yes.
Yes.
It's not an LLC. All right. And so, Mr. Rayo Wolf, you understand that if the court does accept this deferred judgment of conviction, that part of the agreement is that you must pay every penny of this $15,000 within that period of time. And I believe, if I'm recalling off the top of my head, I do not have that DJOC up right now.
It's 3 years.
3 years. And so you must pay every penny on the dot, timely, in the timely payments. Timely, because if you miss one payment, that means this agreement can be revoked. You can come in front of this court for sentencing on that felony. Do you understand?
Yes.
And so you are accepting and being accountable for the responsibility of $15,000 in restitution to RAL.
Yes.
All right. Okay. So that is agreed upon and stipulated too. Therefore, Mr. Schmidt, argument and sentencing recommendation, please.
Sure, Judge. So when this case started, it was Detective Tex coming to me. We got in this report of this deer poach. He said he wanted to do a document subpoena of a bunch of Facebook records. And I read through and I said, how do you identify a deer from photos? I can't comprehend that. I kind of said, I don't really believe that. And then he showed me the photos and I said, oh yeah, that's how. We submitted the document subpoena with the photo of the deer on there. I actually thought about filing the complaint with the photos of the deer on there for exactly that reason. And I didn't because of restrictions on the Protect software. And of course that drew a motion that kind of had that as part of the motion to dismiss. The next part of it was finding out the cost of the deer. When we first got the case, I thought the cost of the deer would be like a few hundred to a few thousand because, hey, it's livestock. The high end of livestock in my mind was cows. That's like what cows are. So I was totally dead wrong. What I'm getting at is there was a lot of self-education for me, a 34-year-old educated male who grew up in a household where still, even though I don't hunt anymore, my dad talks to me about hunting all the time. I would have never guessed this is the value of the deer. When we dumped the Facebook records, we didn't see any discussion about what the cost of these animals were. Just, hey, look at this website. Look what this one looks like. What a monster. Look how big the rack is. A lot of that kind of thing. There was no evidence of any like drug use or substance abuse or that sort of criminogenic need. So we charged it out. We got the motion. I don't think it was a frivolous motion, so I don't really fault that or anything. And then I made my offer in the case, which was an either or offer depending on whether we got the head back. For me, the getting the head back was important because it's not that a deer was stolen or it was harvested in the traditional sense. The meat was left there. All that was harvested is the head. And the deer is not really what this business owner sells. He sells the experience. It's a high-end luxury experience that is cost prohibitive to most people. You probably need a discretionary income equivalent to my salary from the government to be able to afford to do this. And what my takeaway from that is the value of the head is part of what people value as that experience of the hunt, because they want to get that head, they want it on the wall, they want to show people, it's a point of pride. When I saw the messages on the Facebook that we dumped, the value was the pride of it. And there was no intent to sell the head. The head, you heard from at the last hearing from the victim, has a de minimis value because it's really most valuable to whoever hunted it, to whoever bought the experience. So I wanted the head to, one, I didn't want the offender to have that after whatever the conclusion of the case was, because that would be not just a trophy to, the hunt, it'd be a trophy to something they did wrong. I thought it could be negatively reinforcing socially. I also wanted it because turning it over prior to a plea would accomplish, showing some remorse and contrition. It accomplished wanting to make things right. I had this one burglary case recently where the defendant actually helped recover the property, and that very much impressed me. So that was my first offer. It was accepted. They waived prelim to accept it. They brought the head to the prelim. They pled guilty to both counts as is without even receiving discovery. I can't imagine what more the defendant could have done to show contrition and remorse in this case. Prior to the hearing, Mr. Moustakis was back in my office and we were talking about restitution. You can probably imagine, there's a discussion as lawyers do about, well, should it be the cost or the value of it? And I was getting up the statute on my phone. And Mr. Ray Wolf was standing next to his attorney and just kind of intervened and shut both me and Mr. Moustakis down and said, no, I did some research. I think it was worth this much. I want to stipulate to the restitution. Both me and Vicky talked afterward. We were very impressed with that he had the boldness to step in and stop his attorney trying to like get him a better bargain, try to get him a reduction in cost to himself, because I get the impression he thinks it's the right thing to do. When I looked at this case originally, the thing that was the most similar in my mind to other past cases we had, when this hunt happened, when this animal was poached, Mr. Ray Wolf would have been about 17 and a half. 2 years ago, we had an offender who was about 3 months shy of 17. So it was a juvenile case where they broke into a meat packing place and caused like damage to it, just graffiti kind of nonsense, spraying fire extinguishers. If you had asked how much it would cost to like repair that, to clean it up, you'd guess a few hundred to a few thousand. But guess what? It's a meat packing plant. They have to be FDA compliant. They have to have hyper clean everything, have certified cleaners. The restitution that wound up being like 25 grand or something like that. So I thought this case was very similar in the sense that it wasn't intuitive what the actual loss to the business owner would be from what you're doing. You'd think, hey, you know, it's one deer in a herd of over 100. Maybe it's worth a few hundred, maybe it's worth a few thousand. I don't think the offender knew this deer was worth 15,000 when he poached it. I think he came fresh from high school being 17 and a half. I'm still just barely young enough to remember being in high school, middle school. It does not go into your comprehension, the consequences of things, the effect of things on other people. You come from a world of timeout and detention and can't remember what my school called them, where you get like written up on reports. You come from a world where you go home and you might get grounded. You might have to pay back mom for damage for stuff. You might get whooped depending on your household. To go from that to something where what Mr. Wolf has pled to in this case, he could go to prison for it. To go to that is such a huge leap, and people don't comprehend that. It's not the world they've lived their entire lives. So that's why what I crafted here is what I thought is reasonable. What I've crafted here is even really only half diversionary. The felony DJOC is the diversionary component, enables him not to be convicted of a felony so young. He does have a job where he makes pretty decent income. He does tree services. He has the ability to pay this in 3 years. I really think he does. And the other half of it, he is convicted of a misdemeanor. He's going on probation. He has the possibility of expungement, but it's still a conviction. It's still probation. It still requires him to succeed on everything in that year, or else he doesn't even get the expungement because of, you know, Wisconsin case law. If you mess up on probation, even if you successfully discharge at the end, you don't get the expungement. So I think there's a lot of accountability here, and I think there's a lot in here to make him law abiding. But I think there's also a bit in here with the DJOC element of the felony, giving him a chance of, you know, you're not going to get absolutely blasted on your first offense fresh out of high school, the worst it could possibly be. I think that's appropriate, especially here, given I think he does feel bad about what he did. I think he just wasn't thinking. I think he had never thought about the actual impact on other people, which, yeah, that's not a good thing. But also, when you're 17 years old, people are still learning that aspect. When you talk about like marriages and people dating and expanding, they say you start with passion, you start with romance. As you get older and you're together longer, you learn compassion, you learn empathy. And it's the same, not just for love and romance, but for everybody, for learning how to interact with other human beings. It's one of those hard to learn philosophical skills that me personally, I had the benefit of taking philosophy in college and learning about that from the ancient Greeks, but a lot of people don't. I think that we do have accountability here with the criminal conviction, with the possibility of probation being revoked and going to jail, with the DJOC being revoked and possibly going to prison, definitely being convicted of a felony that would end his gun hunting forever. yeah, the tribes have kept a lot of rights in regards to hunting from their treaty with Wisconsin and the United States, but that doesn't ban bans on firearms. That's something that would come into play and I think would be highly significant and highly motivating for this offender. So I think all things together, especially with the restitution being stipulated to today, I think this is the best way to make sure that this victim gets the 15 grand. I think this is the best way to make sure Wesley Rayo Wolf doesn't do this again. I think it accommodates his rehabilitative potential, which I think he's shown with him even going against it, what his lawyer is actively doing to make things right. I think that's so highly significant, but also making sure he's accountable. The criminal conviction accomplishes that. So for those reasons, I think our agreement's appropriate. I ask the court to follow. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. Mr. Moustakis?
Thank you, Judge. I do want to correct one thing. Our agreement, and I just looked at it to make sure, on the theft, the agreement was for costs and expungement. And I don't want to disrupt what we're doing here today, okay? But the recommendation of probation, or that he was going to be on probation, was not part of the agreement, but my client understands.
He recommended that? I didn't hear him recommend that.
I did. I misspoke.
Oh.
I was reading.
Oh,
That's
it-
how
You know how I said I didn't either or offer?
Even if-
I'm sorry.
Even if he did, it went over my head because I know what the agreement is.
Okay, that's fine. I just want to correct it for the record. That's
I
all.
misspoke. I was.
Okay.
Even if he misspoke, thanks for correcting it. I know what the agreement is, and I, for the most part, always recite what the agreement is
Okay.
before I do sentencing, but thank you, Mr. Moustakis.
Thank you, Judge. Mr. Wolf is really, other than this terrible lapse in judgment, he was 17 and he has not completed high school yet. But what I find about my client is he is extremely intelligent. He is extremely logical in his thoughts when he finally did come to realize the impact that it had on another individual. And one of the things that stands out to me is the last time we were here, we were in the hallway and we were waiting, and I wanted him to address the victim. And because when years ago, we talked about restorative justice versus diversionary programs, it's been a change, and I was very involved in the restorative justice.
Justice, I started a program here. We have it internal in Burnett County.
And I was one of the people that started it in Vilas County. So I'm very familiar with that, and the fact that it's good for the victim to actually have contact with the defendant and allow them to have some communication. And he did allow to have some communication with my client, and I give him credit for that. And my client apologized to him personally. That's a big thing, I think, for a young individual to do. And my client wanted to do that. And I find him extraordinary because without a high school diploma, he is working for a tree service, and he runs a crew for that tree service. And by next year, he'll be running 2 crews. And he works extremely hard in that business. In fact, I learned today that he's renting a home with an option to purchase it right now. For an 18-year-old, I find that rather extraordinary. And I bring these things about because we look at this diversion program that he has agreed to involve himself in, and there are a lot of public benefits here. You know, the court asked about that last hearing we were at, and some of the public benefits: it makes him accountable. It provides cost savings to the criminal justice system. And it's not about retribution for its own sake, but accountability and rehabilitation. It actually, that article that I filed talks about how diversion, from a percentage perspective over the study that they did, it increases the likelihood that first-time felony offenders who are young, like my client is, are more apt to be better employed and less involved in the criminal justice system which is another public benefit in both regards. He's learning a great lesson by what has occurred here today because of, one, the expense that he is going to have to suffer, both for restitution and in other related accounts, my fees, frankly. So he's suffering a great financial hardship, but more importantly, he came forward and said, I want to do this. What I did was wrong. And when I sat down and talked to him about the offer that was made, and I told him that, and at the time, I did not know whether or not the head was going to be available. But it was available, and he brought it here in anticipation of this agreement. I think that says a lot for his recognizing what he did and what he did was wrong. So I give him a lot of credit for that. I think a lot of older people who are seasoned in the criminal justice system would never have considered doing something of that nature. So there are long-term benefits for both the community and for my client. And I find that important. It's interesting that this article talks about, and we've I know all studied the fact that giving people felony convictions and causing the system to deal with them generally has more negative impacts, and they become more likely to have further criminal activity. And what the article says is that there's, and I'm sure the research, and we've all looked at this, tells us that the contract is important because it gives them a basis and a reason to succeed. And I think that's exactly what Mr. Wolf understands. If he fails to comply with this contract, he's going to be back here. He's going to be back here for sentencing on a felony because he's already pled to the felony. So he has a great incentive, frankly, to make sure that he succeeds in this contract. And I have no doubt that he will, in my mind, based upon the things that I've learned about this young man. He actually brought money to start paying restitution today because he recognizes that's important. And he truly is very sorry for what he has done. These diversion programs, according to this empirical data, indicate that they improve behavioral outcomes over a 10-year follow-up period. 48% of a decline in future convictions and 64% in improvement in earning capacity. That's substantial. And I think in Mr. Wolf's case, at 18 years old, he's earning more than a lot of people, and he's doing it, and he works hard, he works full-time. Really impressive, and I think this young man really ought to complete his education because I think he could provide a lot of intelligent feedback to his community. I'm impressed by him, and I don't say that very often. I will indicate, so the court's aware, and I want to be forthright, is this empirical data was done with low-risk offenders from Harris County, Texas. They were young Black offenders, but I think that it would still ring true throughout other communities as well, that are young offenders, first-time felony offenders, as we have here. It's interesting that the article talks about the stigma of a felony conviction on these young offenders because they recognize that they do not want to be convicted of something. And in, of course, Mr. Wolf's case, the lone fact alone that he may never be able to possess a firearm is a big stigma to him and his upbringing as a Native American. So I think when we take a look at that, that's yet another public benefit because it reduces the negative impact of felony convictions. And it's interesting because the empirical data really suggests that the criminal justice system, and what I learned today from the state, frankly, is that the diversionary programs are judge-based and developed in Wisconsin. And the empirical data indicates that it's the criminal justice system that plays a crucial role in this particular situation, and it actually talks about racial inequality in the United States. You see, neither I nor I think the ADA or even Mr. Wolf could actually be able to afford the services provided by the victim, even with our good jobs. And that's an interesting dynamic. So
You'd be surprised who affords that, though, who actually puts the money aside to be able to do that. I'm well aware of, I'm very familiar with this type of employment in this type of business. Born, raised here in Burnett County, very familiar with hunting, very familiar with big game and these farms, especially the fact that I think we have 3 or 4 in this county,
yeah,
game farms.
I'm not quite as familiar, but I am familiar with.
I knew it wasn't going to be worth $300 or $500. I knew it was going to be worth more of the $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 range.
Understood. Okay. But just to say, the public benefits, another public benefit also suggests that these kinds of changes in how the criminal justice system is handling first-time young offenders may lead to lower rates of reoffending and higher rates of rehabilitation.
We're preaching to the choir with diversion programs.
I only raise these things because of what happened at the last hearing. Okay.
And what happened at the last hearing, and I'll get into that with my sentencing, Mr. Moustakis, because this was so very egregious and a very egregious conduct and behavior. And given it was a 17-and-a-half-year-old coming 2.5 to 3 hours from Lac to Flambeau, making the drive at night to come to a big game farm to climb a 10-foot or more fence over to get a big game buck, to kill that buck, to cut off its head, to carry that head over that fence, and to take that and then to blatantly place it over Facebook. That is the reason, because this is so egregious.
And I think that the court, with the background that the court has and the background that I have at my age, can understand that. I think a 17-and-a-half-year-old doesn't have that appreciation. And until they learn and recognize the experiences that other people have.
That's why he's in that chair right now. And that's why he gets to have the experience of you in that chair. And that's why he gets to hear the words from me, who's been experienced in this chair for almost 8 years and experienced in the whole legal practice for over 20 some years, 22, 23 years.
Understood. Okay. But at any rate, I think the agreement here really gives him an opportunity to make amends and to learn and to become a much more mature adult. And I do ask this court to follow the agreement because I think probation really, you can put him on probation, you can do a few things, but it's the contract that is more important and much longer. It's his understanding that he has to complete that agreement, and it's going to be supervised. So that contract It'll be supervised. He has to pay that restitution. He
That'll be
can't,
supervised.
he can't get any further trouble. He has to stay clean for 3 years. That's easy to find out if he's done something wrong. Okay. So I think the agreement is frankly the right thing for this young individual. Okay. I may not say that for other individuals that we know have been involved in the system. He's never been involved in the system. He has never done anything of any criminal nature before. And he's done a lot of positive things, amazing positive things without even a high school diploma.
And I'd like to hear about that. Anything further?
No, Judge, but he would like to make a statement.
And I will ask him, anything further from the victim? The victim can come have a seat at the black table, and you can either state your name or your initials for the record.
Name is Rich Lawrence, owner of Smoking Gun Hunting Ranch.
I have a question. That has 300 points?
307, not points, inches.
Oh,
scored in
inches. Okay, because I don't, that's what I don't understand about deer. I don't get that counting them thing.
So every point you measure up from the main beam, and then when you got all them measured, tally it up.
Can you hold it up so I can see it, please? That is a beauty.
So,
Definitely not from the wild, though.
no, that's why they come to hunt where they hunt. I guess, anybody that knows me, which, nobody here does, I am a very, when done wrong, very intolerant person. Which probably most people are, but talking to the DA with the agreement, this and that, the hunting experience of the buck was worth more, correct? But how much can a young individual pay and maybe pay, you know? So we come to that agreement to hopefully get this squared up. And as the lawyer over there says, he's, you know, doing the right thing. He wasn't doing the right thing till he got caught, you know, till got pinned down. So turn stuff in that he didn't have, and, you know, and neglect and deny, but that's here nor there. So I guess if restitution's paid, gets paid, and I guess my opinion would be to look for, I mean, this is a second chance, you know, I mean, screw up, it's over, make things, you know, get on with your life and do things right. So, but yeah, anything else that the court wants to do, that's up to them. But I guess as long as restitution is paid in a timely fashion, or monthly payments, or however that's set up, and I get left alone for future problems, I'm good. So.
All right,
say
thank you,
something?
Mr. Lawrence.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Mr. Rail Wolf, I am now going to turn to you, and this is your opportunity to provide me with any statement that you wish, any statement at all, any feelings of remorse, anything that you would like to add, anything that you would like to tell me. But first, I have a question. You do not have a high school diploma, and you are working at a lumber or timber or some kind of.
We cut trees like around houses, close to buildings and stuff like
Okay,
that.
do you have an intention to get your GED high school diploma or equivalent?
Yes, it's gonna further me in my career in tree work.
All right, okay, and why are you not in high school right now?
I got kicked out for fighting.
Okay, but you have a plan to do so?
I already tested for my GED. I have to take 2 more tests.
What tests do you have to take?
My reading, and I did my science and my math,
Do you have
2.
just
take.
readings
No, I have to take a reading and a math.
and a math? Okay, all right. All right, anything further that you would like me to know?
I'd like to apologize again for taking away from his livelihood and his family, and his taking away money out of his pocket. And I know it's not easy to make money and make a living off a farm, especially it takes a long time for a buck to grow. I understand that. I know it's hard, like, it's not easy to make a living doing that. It's not easy to make a living doing anything. And I understand that. And I took away from his business, and I couldn't imagine if someone were to take away from our business that I do, we would be out of work if they took our equipment or whatever. I totally understand that what I did was wrong, and I apologize. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Rayo-Wolf. Well, this is your first time in trouble, your first time in criminal court. And so I'm going to make sure that you fully understand the seriousness of this matter, because quite honestly, I don't want you to be here again. I wouldn't have wanted you to be here in the first place. But when a judge looks at sentencing or looks at what to do when I have recommendations or agreements in front of a court, I have to look at multiple factors, multiple things. The higher courts say, Judge, you have to look at these things when you sentence an individual. I have to look at first the nature and the gravity of the offense. Okay, how serious was this? Look at the facts. What did the person do? What was their state of mind? What was their thought process when they were engaging in doing this? What is that person's character? Do they have a prior criminal record? And then I also have to look at needing to protect the public. And that means needing to protect either the public from you from committing further criminal activity, or if you need some type of treatment, and if you need to be confined and that's the only place you need to do it. Or I need to look at if this was so serious that it would unduly depreciate the seriousness of this crime if I weren't to incarcerate you. All right, this is a serious crime, and we'll get into that. I also have to look at the victims here, and I have to look at you to see if there's any rehabilitative needs and any undesirable behavior patterns, your age, your culpability, your education level, your history, those kinds of things. I also have to look at this thing called deterrence. All right. And there's two types of deterrence. One is specific deterrence, where I'm going to specifically deter you from continuing to do criminal activity, specifically this type of crime or other criminal activity, or general deterrence, deterring other people from thinking they can do this type of thing. All right. Because when we're looking at this case, and this is very egregious, when I don't know what or how you concocted this plan, if you were thinking or sitting around with buddies or doing what you were doing, or what in the world came into your mind. And I get it, it's a 17-year-old mind at the time, where you're like, hey, I know this farm 2.5, 3 hours away that raises these big old huge bucks. I'd like one of them on my walls, or whatever your thought process was. It's very serious, and it is egregious, and it is so unbelievably wild and crazy to think that you drove 2.5 or 3 hours away up here to Burnett County to scale a very large fence, to kill a very large buck, to cut off its head and throw it over that fence and to take it, but then to blast it all over Facebook, to not like be inconspicuous. You were very conspicuous. You're like, hey, look, everybody, look at this big old deer I have. You weren't trying to hide anything. I don't know if you thought you'd get away with it. I don't know if you thought that Facebook is quiet, because it's not. And once things are on Facebook, you can't ever get it out. Social media is forever. It's forever. You delete something, they'll still be able to get it. Stupid. Very, very stupid. Even for a 17-year-old, stupid. So I don't know if it was your plan. I don't know if it's a buddy's plan. I don't know if it was yours and a buddy's plan together. I don't know who came up with this cockamamie idea, but it was dumb. Very dumb. And you risked your life and your future and your families and your future families and all of that. And if I might add, your aunt, because now she has her own criminal cases that are tracking along. All right?
Yes.
I think your Aunt Terry, whoever that is in relation to you.
Yeah, that's my auntie.
So I really don't know what you were thinking, but I know you weren't thinking. And I do believe Mr. Moustakis, where he says that, and I quote, "You're extremely intelligent." I believe that. I believe you are extremely intelligent. I think you're too intelligent for your own britches, because anyone who can concoct a plan like this and who can go and do what they did and how they did it is intelligent. What you did after shows just how stupid of a criminal you are and how immature your brain is. And it's obvious that you were going to get caught. And the fact that even if you thought you were going to be 2.5, 3 hours away, or even if you thought you were going to be 6 hours away and not be caught, that's so silly. It's so silly. In the day of social media, even if you were in Louisiana, they would have found you. They would have drug your little butt here, and you would have faced felony charges, and you would have been convicted of a felony, and you would be sitting in jail. All right? So think, because you are a young man who you truly do have your whole life ahead of you. You truly do have your whole life ahead of you. And you can make something of yourself.
Yes.
And I do believe in second chances. And the victim here believes in second chances. And the whole part of the justice system and the diversion program too is to better the community and to make the community stronger and to give second chances and to try and make the victims whole. And that's what we're trying to do here. And that's what this agreement is trying to accomplish. And that is the number one goal. And that will be the number one goal. And that will be what is stressed, Mr. Rayo-Wolf.
Okay.
That is what will be stressed. And you cannot miss a payment. And it won't matter if you're like, I lost my job. I don't have money. I can't pay my bills. I don't have any income coming in. It won't matter.
Better make my payment.
You got to figure that out. And I don't know, but are you a member of a tribe?
Yeah.
Do you receive any type of per cap?
Once a year, I think it's.
Oh, once a year?
He's a member of the Lac de Flambeau tribe.
And they don't,
They're very, they don't.
They're
give
not
their-
well off.
Yeah.
okay, so it's not like
It's not like I
not
get.
good.
Mille Lacs or anything like
Yeah,
that?
I don't get no.
We're the
Okay.
Potawatomis.
Okay, because otherwise you could have assigned it so they could have paid the payments, so then you could have had less stress on your shoulders.
I understand.
Do you get a paycheck or are
Every
you
two-
paid in cash?
No, I get a paycheck every 2 weeks.
Because you can have, I don't know if the district attorney's office can do that income assignment. They cannot do that. So you have to pay by check or cash to
That's fine.
the
Can I?
DA's office.
Okay.
If the court accepts the DAGOC, and I don't see any reason why not to, other than this was so egregious. And the reason why I stress this so hard, Mr. Moustakis, and so hard, Mr. Rayo-Wolf, because of the nature of the crime and the thought process and what you took and the steps you took to take to do what you did. Because if you had this plan and you concocted this plan and you got away with it, why wouldn't anyone else think that they can come up here and they can do the same? And if people think that that deer head, that buck head, it's only worth $300, $500, or it's not worth anything, that they can just go ahead and do that, and they're going to get a slap on the wrist. It's going to be okay. Anyone will do that. Anyone will engage in that. But now we know that you have pled to a felony. You understand the seriousness of that, because if you mess up, if you don't abide by what you need to do and follow all of those conditions, which means you pay off every penny of that $15,000 of restitution, and I have figured it out, and it will be $500 per month in restitution payments, beginning this month and thereafter. From this month and thereafter, $500 a month to the district attorney's office, plus that $150 fee that must be paid to the DA's office now within 60 days. That's the number one reason I see them revoke the agreement, is that non-payment of
I
$150.
paid it.
You did? Good. So that's done. So get that done. And then I think, well, that's it anyway with that. So $500 a month in restitution. You must pay that for the DJOC. So I will accept the DJOC for that felony. If you fail to abide by the conditions, and that means squeaky clean for 3 years, no underage drinking. That means no use or possession of any illegal drugs, substances, or paraphernalia. We're not in Michigan. We're not in Minnesota. We're not in Illinois or Iowa. We're not in any of the states that allow THC.
Right.
So we cannot even use any of those substances.
Understood.
Traffic offenses are fine. That's not a violation. But anything that rises to probable cause in a criminal court will violate this agreement. You could be revoked. You could be sent to prison for up to 3.5 years of incarceration. All right?
Understood.
So it's very important you follow everything to the letter. If you follow everything to the letter, then the matter gets resolved and dismissed. That felony goes away. All right? I am also adding a condition to the DJOC. The condition to the DJOC is that you get your high school diploma or equivalent within 2 years.
Okay.
Doesn't sound like you have a lot to do in order to attain that.
Nope.
And so that's why I asked you. It shouldn't be a punishment, but this should be a benefit for you anyway to get your high school diploma or equivalent. It's going to benefit you because not only do they say if you have a high school diploma or equivalent, you make on average 25% more than someone who doesn't, but that equates to approximately $500,000 more over the course of a lifetime over someone who does not have a high school diploma or equivalent. So it's very important that you get that document. All right. Now, with regards to the misdemeanor, what I'm going to do is I am going to assess $1,000 in fines, fees, and DNA surcharges. $200 must be paid within 60 days.
Okay.
All right. The rest can be paid in $100 increments until paid off in full. If you pay off all of the restitution, your court costs and fees, and you complete the DJOC, I will grant you the ability to have this matter expunged from your record. Because if you've done all that, Mr. Rayo Wolf, the community will not be harmed. In fact, it will be benefited because you will benefit, because you will be in a better position to earn more money, to get better jobs, to be a better contributing member of society, to be a better influential member of your tribe.
Thank you, Judge.
I would like to see you, I don't know how active you are in your tribe. I'd like to see you become more active in your tribe. Do more things, get more active. Okay? Do you do things? Do you play the drums?
No, I mean, I go to the powwow sometimes I have this older guy that I hang out with. He runs like a drum group. So I go with them sometimes, but I
don't think legally I can order that you do something like learn something tribally related, but I'm going to strongly encourage that you do. Maybe have somebody teach you how to play the drums or teach you something with regards to your culture. Get something so you can be more closely connected to your culture. Okay? No probation, no jail. You're given a second chance, Mr. Royal Wolf. Use it. Don't abuse it. Do good things. And if this plan was concocted with somebody else, don't associate with that somebody else because they do not have your good intentions in mind.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Just, you emphasized on Facebook and posting. I did learn something myself from this event. I posted up, I think I'm running 6 cell cameras around the perimeter, viewing out. So, yeah, monthly occurring cost, but if somebody tries such, I'll have them right up front instead of having to look at Facebook. So just
That's
wanted
very good.
noted for anybody that wants to try such, you know.
That's very good to note. Thank you, Mr. Lawrence. Mr. Rail Wolf, I also want to commend you for your remorse and commend you for accepting the responsibility and being accountable and stipulating to the restitution. That's not a small dollar amount. And it's going to take you probably the whole 3 years, well, it will, to be able to pay that back. And you'll probably have to hurt a little in order to do that. You'll suffer a little and won't get some of the treats or things that you may
Like to
otherwise
do.
want.
Yep.
So that's part of restitution too, is that that's what they say. Sometimes you have to suffer a little in order to make the victim whole. So I do want to say that that was part of the basis for the sentencing decision here today. So I do commend you for accepting the responsibility and being accountable. So you have 20 days to appeal. Should you fail to appeal within 20 days, you do lose that right. I think I need fingerprints, at least my system says I do.
Yeah.
I do need DNA. So you're going to need to go to the jail and provide DNA and fingerprints. I believe, Mr. Moustakis, that this misdemeanor is one that he can request the DNA be expunged from the system through a written letter to the Department of Justice. It's pretty easy to do, Mr. Rayo Wolf. Mr. Moustakis can tell you how to do it, or you can Google it. It's pretty easy. It'll show you how to do it. Mr. Schmidt, is there anything that I am missing?
No, I have nothing to add.
Mr. Moustakis.
No, Judge, and I appreciate your comments.
All right. Thank you. Good luck.